Pardon if this review is a little bit disjointed. I'm still trying to process what I just watched. We've got a bit of a weird one today. One you probably never even heard of before. On the surface, Sheep in the Big City looks like a fairly typical cartoon. It would be a dime a dozen before more plot-focused cartoons took over the industry. You got this sheep, right? And he moved away from the farm to the big city. Get it? Sheep in the Big City. Unfortunately, all is not happy in the world for Sheep, as two members of a secret military organization, General Specific and Private Public, want to use Sheep for a sheep-powered ray gun. So Sheep must go through the many misadventures to avoid getting captured and win the heart of his beloved Swanky the Poodle. Sorry, wait, no, that's not the show, that's my Mad Lib. No, wait, that's really the show. And it's really stupid. And no, that's not an insult or anything like that, it's just a fact of the matter. The show knows that this whole premise is stupid, and is hyper aware of it. One of the main characters of the show is actually the narrator. Like, not just the Powerpuff Girls way, like, the narrator is actually a character with the name Ben Plotz. And he can sometimes even get involved in the story. But most of his time, his role is just being done with this whole entire thing. Like, one episode has an ending that is so terrible that he just changes it. Another episode is a bunch of dreams, and so the narrator is complaining about it ending in dreams. And it's just really wonderful. Ben Plotz is the best character on the show. Most cartoons with a Looney Tunes type premise like this usually revolve around the slapstick or maybe even situational comedy. Sheep in the Big City is a standout because its main type of comedy is meta humor. Sheep in the Big City is a very meta show. Like, one episode has someone talking about something that's important and there'll be a very big red plot point blinking over it. The show will frequently make reference to itself or other cartoon tropes. Honestly, it's kinda like Phineas and Ferb in that way, just half a decade earlier. Or maybe I'm just thinking that because of this mad scientist character here.
Angry! I am an angry scientist!
My mistake.
I'd totally call him inspiration from Doofenshmirtz, if I didn't know that the creators were pitching Phineas and Ferb since the 90s. Honestly, I'm still tempted to anyway. I don't want to make the show seem like a total one-trick pony. There are other types of jokes beyond the meta stuff. It takes a lot of inspiration from Rocky and Bullwinkle, and has these just ridiculous shorts and sketches. Every episode of the show is divided into 3 chapters, and in between each of them, you get a commercial, usually shilling something from Oxymoron. Basically, they're Acme standin'. But I like Oxymoron a lot better because it's used as an excuse to keep saying moron in a kid's cartoon. They have a Christmas episode that's not about Christmas. It's about a holiday called Clearance Day, where everything is on sale. And everyone goes crazy about it because they can get 30 to 50% off on retail prices on store products. And that sounds crazy and like a cartoon until you're an adult in a different world and you see how people act during the Steam Summer Sale. The best part of that episode is watching Farmer John trying to come up with a dinner that won't offend any of his guests, all of which are farm animals. Like I said, this review is pretty disjointed because it's hard to talk about sheep. You're not supposed to really care about the characters more than you would say Wile E. Coyote or Bugs Bunny. The show is just joke, joke, joke. The story is stupid, and it's going to MST3K itself while you're watching it. I will say this is a show that really isn't meant to be binged. It's actually very anti-binge, and it came out in a time before that was actually a thing. The show relies so heavily on meta humor. Like I said, there are other types of jokes, but meta humor is its staple. And when you're getting so many meta jokes one on top of the other, it's very easy to fall out of the beats of the humor. Remember, this came from a time where you could only watch the show like once or twice a day or a week, whatever. Digital distribution wasn't even a pipe dream at the time, and home releases weren't the most common thing in the world unless you were a big hit like SpongeBob, Simpsons, or Rugrats. I watched the whole show in 2 days. It's 26 episodes, and in doing that, I kinda burnt myself out on it by the end. So if I had some advice, I'd say take it slow. Because I really do think that you should check it out, just not all at once. I watched the show as a kid, and while I remembered like nothing specific about the premise before revisiting it for this marathon, certain things from the show would just stick in your brain. Like every episode ends with a skit of the ranting Swede. The joke is very much accents are funny.
What about all these people living in the Houston and Dallas and Amarillo? They'll be fine, they can always go upstairs, and maybe that's where the family room is anyway.
But like, I'm never gonna forget about him ranting about supermarkets and wondering why they can't sell chocolate hamburgers. Oh, but you know, welcome to the future, ladies and gentlemen. I actually have a very specific memory of this show, believe it or not, and I don't know how factual it is in reality. But we got time, and I gotta talk about something to hit the time limit. So I watched this show a lot as a kid, back in 2000 and 2001. I remember it was airing at like 10 p.m. at night, like specifically. It's the kind of fever dream of a show that probably should be airing that late at night. Then in 2001, something happened.
All kids out of the pool for Adult Swim. All kids out.
Cartoon Network announced this new thing, Adult Swim. It would start playing at 9 p.m. at night, and it would continue to 10 p.m. at night, and then Sheep was never seen again. That's not completely accurate according to my research. Around that time, the show was actually greenlit for a second season, like exactly at the time, but I do know that the show was really poorly treated. Although in hindsight, I do feel that a lot of shows were given poorer treatment than they should have, just to make room for Adult Swim. Honestly, that might be where some of my bitterness towards the whole concept came from, and I do remember Sheep being a particularly big casualty of that. Keep in mind, I am going off memory here, but I do remember its time slot being when Adult Swim started. And after that, the network put Sheep in all the most random ass times and like for no reason, which is weird. Despite how obscure the show is these days, it was actually really liked back in the day. At the time, its premiere was the highest rated of all the Cartoon Network originals. And to be frank, I can see why. Sheep in the Big City was very ahead of its time. Meta-humor is a dime a dozen today, but in the year 2000, meta-humor only really exploded with like social media and everyone being able to quote and comment on every little thing and people getting by and large bored with traditional storytelling methods. At the time, something like this would have been super refreshing. There really was no other show in Y2K that was this self-referential. Yeah, you had other shows like Animaniacs that made pop culture references or acknowledged that they were cartoons, but something that went all in to make meta its bread and butter, that was unheard of at the time. The Simpsons would do a couple of episodes that were self-referential, like Treehouse of Horror 2, where they wish to be famous, and have to first-handedly deal with the 90s Simpsons mania, but imagine if every episode of the show was like that. I believe that this is an underrated classic, but that being said, I don't know how it would fare if you started airing it today. Nowadays, meta-humor is a dime a dozen. The fourth wall broke sometime in 2012, and we've been deconstructing its doors and windows for a decade now. So maybe it would come across as a little old and trite. Then again, they did revive Phineas and Ferb, and a proto-that is the biggest vibe I got from Sheep in the Big City, so who knows. If you do like meta-humor, even just a little bit, Sheep in the Big City is one you have to check out, a must-see. You know, if you could find it. Good luck on that one.